I'll rip your soul out. I'll rip your soul out, you pathetic fuck. I'm John Renton with the retro review of Evil Dead from 2013, a reimagining of, wait for it, sit down, this is a mind-blowing fact and an absolute spoiler, the 1981 The Evil Dead movie. A reimagining in the sense that they took any imagination that was in the 1981 version and said, that's going over here, we're replacing it with gallons and gallons and gallons and thousands upon thousands of gallons of gore, more annoying characters, and basically making the cast from 2002's Cabin Fever seem likable by comparison. Speaking of which, when it comes to Cabin Fever 2002, whatever happened to Serena Vincent? I mean, she's not the most amazing actress, but she was definitely beautiful. My God, she was beautiful. Still is, in fact. It seems like she should have had a fine career. I mean, she's been in a few decent movies, but it seems like she should have been in bigger roles. Let's get back to the 2013 version of Evil Dead. This is concluding the rewatch and the catching up to get ready for Evil Dead Rise, coming out in a couple weeks as of this recording. I'll be watching that. I hold no affection to the Evil Dead franchise, even though I appreciate the ingenuity. Did praise Evil Dead 2. You can check out my retro reviews of all 3 installments. And I'm going to be perfectly honest here, this was easily the worst entry in the franchise. It is a soft reboot, so it's not doing any of the medieval stuff and whatever. They just decided to basically gore the whole thing up. And I don't care about gore. You can gore anything up to the goddamn nth degree for all I care. But if it's gore for the sake of it, and you just have annoying characters where you don't care if the heroine or anybody dies, then what's the bloody point? Ironically, this was directed and written by Fede Alvarez, who did Don't Breathe. That was fine. I guess it was fine. Someone made a sequel out of that. He's done shorts and The Girl in the Spider's Web. And was also written by Rodo Sayaguez. Pretty certain I totally butchered that. Don't Breathe. And he also later wrote the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Netflix movie. I would like to take this opportunity to say that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Netflix movie was absolutely horrendous in every possible conceivable way. My God, it was terrible. So this had Jane Levy as Mia, who's a recovering addict that took care of her mother. There's going to be spoilers throughout this whole goddamn thing, by the way. One, the movie just passed its 10-year anniversary, or 10-year anniversary, as it were. And I decided, what the hell, why not just give this a goddamn shot? Because I have actually I had not seen this version before, just a bit ago. I thought I had actually watched this because a lot of movies get away from me, and this was one that got away from me. And again, since I hold no affection towards any of the other installments, it is what it is. But in preparation for Evil Dead Rise, I decided, to hell with it. Let's see how they did things 10 years ago. Jane Levy, again, playing Mia, recovering addict, took care of her mother. Her brother David, played by Shiloh Fernandez. He gets everybody together on a trip to a remote cabin in the woods. Okay, so far it's following the same goddamn beats. Also, there's the Book of the Dead that they find and other stuff. But unlike the first Evil Dead or even Evil Dead 2, when they had to do the catching up of the first Evil Dead because they didn't own the rights to get the footage for the first one to recap for the second one for some odd reason, they basically just decided to follow some of the same beats, but make the characters even more stupid, more ridiculous. And I'm sorry, in all due respect to Shiloh Fernandez, the actors did what they could. I'm not even faulting the cast. I'm faulting the characters. Shiloh is no Ash. And also we do get a very, very, very brief cameo from Bruce Campbell at the very end of the movie. Why? Probably to prep for Ash vs. the Evil Dead, or a possible other movie they were going to do before they decide Ash vs. the Evil Dead doing a 30-episode run for 3 years was a better idea. Olivia, played by Jessica Lucas, who is very beautiful, I do want to say right there. Elizabeth Blackmore plays Natalie, who essentially is the ditzy blonde, and I believe the girlfriend, or at least or possible fuck buddy of Shiloh. Well, aka David. And there's Phoenix Colony, Jim McClarty, and Cian Davis. Cian Davis playing the Afro-possessing Welsh woman who does an incantation in the beginning of the goddamn movie. So, Yeah, the movie really doesn't have anything to offer other than buckets and buckets of gore and really stupid characters and attempts at emotional attachments. The problem is you don't care about any of the characters. I mean, if you like this, that's fine. I've certainly seen worse movies, but when it gave me vibes of the 2002 Cabin Fever movie, which was terrible. I hated Cabin Fever. I don't know why they decided to reimagine it in 2016, and that version was somehow worse. It's like when they did the 1999 Blair Witch and decided to do the 2016 Blair Witch, and besides a couple of the women in that movie, nobody cared. It was terrible. So yeah, they used 70,000 gallons of fake blood instead of the 200 to 300 gallons that was used in the first one. To be fair, more budget this time. 17 million, which I believe, according to the inflation calculator, is about 21.4 million. It's the biggest budgeted movie in of the franchise, unless you do adjust it for inflation. The 13 million that's about for Army of Darkness, it's about 27.5 million in today's money. 54.2 million in the U.S. Okay, good. And considering I remember the advertising campaign was pretty heavy for this, they wanted this to do well. It also made just under 100 million worldwide. So successful, not quite successful enough to where they immediately need to shoot up a sequel. Ironic for the shooting up here because Mia ends up being a recovering addict that says she is swearing off all her stuff. That's it. I'm not doing any of this. But in the opening scene, we have a girl that's kidnapped by some rednecks and then is seemingly tortured. And she's tortured because, of course, she's possessed by something. Why is she possessed by something? Who knows? She's possessed by an evil, killed her mother. Her dad says this, the Welsh woman. It's always the evil Welsh people that end up doing this. Sorry to any Welsh people that happen to be watching this. And, she, to do this to save your daughter. I'll rip your soul out, you pathetic fuck. And then sets her on fire. And it turns out to actually be the same cabin that they are going to be part of. The 520-somethings. At least they said they were 20-somethings and not teenagers or not freshman college students, because nobody would have bought that with these. Even though they're young, good-looking people, there's no way we would have bought them as college freshmen. They are clearly out of college, dealing with their own stuff. There was a dog, an adorable dog, that dies later, but it dies off camera, so I cannot fault that there. Basically, Mia tosses her drugs down a well, and somebody jokes, some slugs or whatever down there are going to have a great party. Or maybe it's the well from the ring, and Samara is just going to, it's like, but you don't understand. Don't stop. What, Samara, are you okay? And the ring ghost on drugs. Now I demand that happens. I demand that happens. Get the IP asylum and make it happen. Make it stupid. So there is a feral cat that's in there. Also somebody senses, Mia in particular, that there is a really bad smell coming from the basement. There's a bunch of dead cats, dead animals. Oh, and it happens to be the same cellar where this girl was burned. Played by Phoenix Colony, by the way. Or Connolly. And then basically Mia starts going through withdrawal, starts losing it. Everybody basically comes up with a pact. We can't let her leave. We can't let her leave. And then from there, we just get characters being stupid. Eric, naturally, just remarkable. After searching through this basement and everything, him and David, Eric just decides that Eric, by the way, played by Lou Taylor Pucci. He has to go. His planet needs him. He basically he's kind of the nerdy type. Him and David have a bit of a tense relationship. And he just decides, hey, I found this book. I'm going to just start reading from this. This looks okay. So let me just cut this book open that's wrapped up. And let me start reading from it. And even though there are warnings to not read this book, leave this book alone, you fucking idiot. He doesn't. He gets blood on the book of the dead. And then weird shit starts happening because he says stuff, summons something, Mia freaks out, and then crashes a car. Hold on, lady driver coming through. She lands in a swamp area or pond or possibly giant tablespoon of water. Hard to tell. Because it was sometimes hard to tell where they were actually at because there were some badly framed shots in this movie. This movie was subjectively terrible. Very, very terrible. And basically, they're searching for her, and she gets possessed by the snake coming out of the demon girl's mouth that got burned, the ancient evil. Oh, I see. It's okay when a demon snake goes up a girl's... But anyway, let's just move on from that. And one by one, we'll kill you all. Mia's all possessed. She gets locked in the cellar. And that's where we're going with that. But everybody's eventually getting attacked and getting destroyed and everything. And there's so much blood. Apparently, everybody was on their demonic period here. It was actually kind of funny. She threw up on her. Too many pronouns, pal. Sorry, Vince McMahon. Mia throws up on Jessica Lucas's character and just... Bleh. And then Jessica is possessed and is just cutting up her own goddamn face and then attacks. Eric basically was almost invincible because he was getting just destroyed. He was getting attacked. He was getting sliced, stabbed. His lung was punctured at one point. Somehow he was perfectly all right and kept going. I don't know how. At one point, Natalie gets locked in the basement or tries to go down and see what's going on with Mia. Mia's all possessed, says, "Kiss me, you dirty..." Can't say that word. And, "Oh, you're gonna die down here. Yes." And basically there's the whole ritual idea is that 5 souls need to be sacrificed and the abomination will come up from hell and blood will rain down from the skies. Mother Nature will be on her period. So Natalie ends up getting bit by Mia during this whole exchange. And then they do the possessed hand thing. It's actually this arm. And she has an arm slicer, or not an arm slicer, but a meat slicer that was used earlier, and cuts off her arm up just about here. And cuts that off, and Mia's just, demonic Mia's yelling, "No, don't do that. What are you doing?" Nothing really happens because Natalie ends up possessed anyway. He's using a nail gun. Eric gets hit with about 20,000 nails. And I know that's not how many can fit in that goddamn thing, but still. David takes a bunch. She has a bunch in her face. And then David ends up shooting her hand off, her other arm off. And then he ends up shooting her and, well, eventually ends up killing her, which is just absolutely goddamn hilarious. I mean, he takes forever to end up doing anything. So, yeah, I'm sorry. A guy named David, unless they're going to call him Dav, and he's going to end up, dabbing it up and doing... I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Doing something like that and ends up becoming this ultra badass. I mean, yes, Ash at first wasn't a badass. He was a goof, but goofy badasses can work, and I'm no offense, but there's no way this character of David's going to work. And then everybody's damaged and destroyed and whatever, and then David gets the idea to just use a chainsaw to hack up people. Yeah, they have the chainsaw. It's forced in about as much as every other reference in this goddamn movie. And suddenly he comes up with a brilliant idea to chain up the cellar and basically just wait it out, even though Eric's bleeding to death and the road's flooded and they can't get out of there. And then he decides, hey, wait a second. Earlier, Eric, you told me that we either have to bury him alive, we have to burn him, or we have to chop him up. Well, let's bury him alive. So he buries his sister alive and says, I know that Mother hates you and she waits you in hell. And then he feels guilt, and his brilliant idea that he came up with earlier before this was to get a bunch of needles with a bunch of drugs and get like his own, defib machine with a car battery and whatever and shock her back. And he ends up digging her up and doing that. And she's fine all of a sudden. But now Eric's possessed, and Eric basically attacks David and mortally wounds him, despite the fact that demonic Eric really shouldn't even be able to walk with how many wounds he has. And then he hands her the keys, pushes her out the door, says, don't look back. Oh, there's a shotgun that we've used a couple times. I'll shoot this gas can and blow it up, and demonic Eric burns, and then the demon tries to possess David, but he burns. Somehow this explosion does not hurt her, despite the fact that she is literally, and I'm not kidding, I'm not fucking kidding, she's right at the goddamn door. It just blows the windows out. Doesn't blow the door out of this cabin that looks worse than the one in the 1981 version. And then she's pursued by the evil. Pursued by the evil. Gets sliced, but there's a machete that gets introduced because apparently they hadn't done enough horror references and said, let's riff off something. The 2009 Friday the 13th movie was better than this. That is saying something. That is honestly saying something. That is really, really bad. But then she has a chainsaw. She gets some spare gas. She gets stabbed through the walls. And then manages to get out. She manages to get in the Jeep, but then the demon girl breaks the window, and she's getting, so, oh, Mia brilliantly gets out, has a chainsaw, but doesn't roll away enough, gets her arm caught, this arm caught underneath the thing, so now she's fucked. She can't quite reach it, it's just this far out of reach, and then the demon says, you're gonna die here, you junkie, and she says, I've had it with this, rips the skin and everything, basically her hand comes off, just a stump, and then it's like Kerry Von Erich's ankle after June 4th, 1986. Only diehard wrestling fans will get that if they're even watching at this point. She gets a chainsaw, does this, and just cuts her through while the blood is raining down from the sky. And then that's it. Body sinks in, she goes off, it ends, and then we get a mid-credits sequence where she is found by somebody, and he's got a tourniquet on her arm, driving her to the hospital, and then they do a jump scare. Boo, her eyes are open, but her eyes are human, or are they? And then we get Bruce Campbell at the very end. Yeah, this movie is shit. This really was. This was not the good kind of fan service. This wasn't even trying to reinvent the goddamn thing. They were just like, let's just do more gore, but let's not actually add any substance to the characters, and people will like that. This actually, I think, was the lowest rated entry in the Evil Dead franchise. So we'll see how Evil Dead Rise does. Apparently, as of this recording, Evil Dead Rise is a whole lot better. They've embraced more of the comedy, I guess. So we'll see what happens. I hated this one, though. I really hated this. Agree, disagree what I said? Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Rentlin. I'll see you soon.